The rain poured relentlessly, turning the quiet suburban streets into a maze of glistening puddles. Jack, a college student working nights as a pizza delivery driver, cursed under his breath as he squinted through the windshield. The address on the slip of paper in his hand was barely legible, smudged by the rainwater that had dripped onto it. He glanced at the GPS, which seemed equally confused, recalculating for the third time. The order was for a house on the outskirts of town, far from Jack's usual delivery route. The area was sparsely populated, with wide stretches of forest separating the occasional farmhouse or cabin. As he turned onto a narrow dirt road, his headlights illuminated gnarled trees and an unsettling wall of darkness beyond them. Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Finally, he spotted the house. It was an old, two-story structure, its paint peeling and windows dark. A single porch light flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows across the weathered wood. Jack parked the car and grabbed the pizza, hesitating for a moment before stepping out into the rain. The air was colder here, biting through his thin jacket. He approached the front door and knocked, the sound echoing unnaturally in the stillness. No response. Jack waited a few seconds before knocking again, louder this time. Still nothing. He leaned forward to peer through the window, but the glass was fogged over, obscuring any view of the interior. Suddenly, the door creaked open. A man stood in the doorway, his face partially hidden in shadow. He was tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through Jack. "You're late," the man said, his voice low and raspy. "Sorry about that," Jack replied, forcing a smile. "The rain." The man cut him off with a gesture, extending a hand for the pizza. Jack handed it over, feeling the man's icy fingers brush against his own. The exchange should have been over, but the man didn't move. Instead, he stood there, staring at Jack with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "You shouldn't be out here," the man said suddenly. "Not tonight." Jack's forced smile faltered. Yeah. Well, I better get going." The man's eyes flicked to the car, then back to Jack. "The woods aren't safe after dark." Jack nodded awkwardly and turned to leave, his heart pounding. He could feel the man's gaze on him as he walked back to the car. Once inside, he locked the doors and started the engine, eager to get away from the unsettling encounter. As he drove back down the dirt road, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The man's words echoed in his mind, "The woods aren't safe after dark." His headlights illuminated the narrow path ahead, but the rain made visibility poorer. The trees seemed to close in around him, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Suddenly, a figure darted across the road, just beyond the reach of his headlights. Jack slammed on the brakes, his heart leaping into his throat. He sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel tightly, his breath fogging up the windshield. Had he imagined it? The rain and shadows played tricks on the eyes, didn't they? Gathering his courage, Jack opened the door and stepped out, his shoes sinking into the muddy road. He shone his phone's flashlight into the woods, scanning for any sign of movement. The beam of light wavered as his hand trembled. Nothing. Just trees and darkness. As he turned to get back into the car, he noticed something on the ground. Footprints. They were deep and fresh, leading from the road into the woods. Jack's stomach churned. Whoever had crossed the road wasn't an animal. He hurried back into the car, locking the doors again and speeding off. The dirt road seemed endless, the rain pounding harder against the windshield. Just as he began to feel a sliver of relief, his car's engine sputtered and died, the headlights flickering out. Jack cursed, frantically turning the key in the ignition, but the car refused to start. The silence was deafening. He grabbed his phone, but there was no signal. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He was stranded, alone, in the middle of nowhere. A faint sound reached his ears, barely audible over the rain. It was a low, guttural growl, coming from the woods. Jack's blood ran cold. He turned to look out the window, but all he could see was darkness. Then came the knocking. It was soft at first, almost hesitant.